as far as tired or sleepy cues, cues that a nap is looming and imminent, and you would be well served to wrap up whatever you're doing and get to your pre-nap routine so that this baby will go down without any fussing or crying and sleep like a baby. First cue is what I would call slow down. Dr. Weissbluth and I'm sure other people refer to this, but I don't think anybody actually, kind of like categorizes it or identifies it as a cue, but it is. I mean, I think the first, maybe most subtle sleep cue that you can look for in your newborn baby, maybe not the first month because they're just constantly passing out, but as wake time begins to emerge, and it's a very minimal wake time of something like, 45 minutes to an hour and a half perhaps in the second month, measured from the start of the breastfeeding, by the way, measured from the time they got up from the nap. Perhaps the most subtle cue, or the first cue that you'll see, is that there's a sudden slowdown in their activity. And they might get kind of a glassy, vacant look in their eyes. Whatever they were doing, they just kind of stop suddenly. And you can see there's just this wave of like fatigue hitting them. We got to understand that for a newborn baby, everything is kind of condensed. So a period of time, like for example, if I woke up at 6 a.m. this morning and I'm, by midnight tonight, by 2 a.m., by 3 a.m., by 4 a.m., I don't know about you, but I mean, I would be ready for bed, and I would be pretty darn sleepy and maybe getting cranky and grumpy. Now imagine if I pulled an all-nighter and, how grumpy or cranky I might be the next day, or, by mid-afternoon the following day and I still hadn't slept. Everything is condensed for a newborn. So asking them to stay awake longer than seconds sometimes, but certainly minutes in these very early days would be like asking you to stay up for another number of hours. And if you can understand that, then you'll be more on top and you'll get more out in front of these sleep cycles and help your baby achieve better naps. So look for slowdown, look for glassy, vacant looks in the eyes, what my wife and I will call a 1,000-mile stare, where they're just kind of looking past you and they're just like, slowing down. You can tell. I mean, if you're observing and you're paying attention, spend enough time with your baby, you'll see those things. In order, kind of an ascending order of, early subtle leading indicators to more lagging indicators, turning the head away or side to side. If it's not nap time, it could just mean the baby wants to do something else. But if it's close to nap time, it might indicate fatigue and the need for the onset of sleep. Tugging the ears or the cheeks. We didn't necessarily see the cheeks, but I think we did see the ears, and that's not intuitive to me. I wouldn't have thought, why would that mean that the baby was ready for a nap? But consider it. Perhaps look for it in your baby and look at the clock and see if it makes sense, because that could be an indicator that some kind of a cue that he or she is giving off that he's getting sleepy and needs to nap. Rubbing the eyes, pretty good sign. I mentioned in the last video about sleep. Red eyes or bloodshot eyes, I would say, geez, I put this baby down. I'm not sure if we saw that in our son, but, that's a relatively clear sign, if you ask me. Yawns, I talked about yawns in the last video on the 4th trimester and sleeping through the night, but, in our experience, yawns were not a leading or lagging indicator. They were somewhere in the middle. And by the time we saw our first yawn, it was almost always, I would say, after the glassy eyes, after the slowdown, maybe after the 1,000-mile stare, but around there, you might get the first yawn. And as I said in the last video, that is a yellow light. It's not a leading indicator. It's somewhere in the middle. It says, you know what, you could probably put this baby down right now. But whatever you're doing, try to, make haste and, wrap it up and, prepare for your pre-nap routine and prepare for nap time. The second yawn was really kind of a red light. It's like, stop. And, it would be good if this baby went down right now if you don't want to hear any fussing or crying. And in our experience, if we waited for the third yawn, we would start to get fussy fussiness and crying, and then you have to deploy other methods to try to soothe the baby, calm him down a little bit so that he can nap at that point. And the longer you wait, and the louder and more desperate the crying gets, the more overtired and overstimulated this newborn baby gets, or even not so newborn baby, you're asking for it. Now it's like maybe they got to fall asleep in your arms. You can't put them down drowsy but awake unless you're willing to walk away and just let them, cry it out, which, by the way, is perfectly fine. I think we ought to kind of somewhat end the debate about whether, letting a baby cry to sleep, if that's all it is and everything else is totally hunky-dory, and maybe we made the mistake of delaying the nap and now they're paying the price for it. Frankly, I think the best thing to do is just let them cry until they fall asleep, because that's what they need. If, be my guest, and, by and large, I think in those cases, we actually had to, we soothed him to sleep. We didn't let our son cry it out. Not in the fourth trimester anyway. We certainly did in the month that followed, and I'll talk about that in future videos, but we didn't do it in the first 3 months. But we did have to soothe him and calm him down so that he would either fall asleep and then put him down, or just calm him down enough to soothe him down enough that he was calm, and then put him down drowsy but awake if we could. So, look at yawns as that kind of a tool, or that kind of an indicator to guide you. The next cue would be fussiness, arching of the back, maybe strong, uncoordinated kicking. You're getting very close to this baby starting to cry, and, think about it. He's obviously expressing something, that he's not happy, and he's not happy because, he needs to sleep, and maybe he's in an environment that, is stimulating or whatever, or he's just not on his back and he's not in mommy's arms, or he's not in a scenario in which he can sleep, or maybe he's fighting the need to sleep. In any event, if you talk to, I'll say it again, if you talk to one of us after pulling an all-nighter, or God forbid going, starting to go a second night without sleep, things get kooky, right? I mean, it's things start to unravel pretty quickly with sleep deprivation. And again, asking a newborn baby to stay up another, 15 minutes even, beyond the time that they really, really need to be sleeping. They might pass out from exhaustion eventually, but you're going to hear a lot of crying along the way before then.